Welcome! In this video, we are going to have a look at the past, present, and future of the Walt Disney Studios Park. The transition to Disney's Adventure World has been set in motion. Join us for some interesting facts about this transition here on dlrpfans. Started soon after Michael Eisner announced the Disney Company would be building a new themed park resort in France. Well, construction began. Dirt was moved and roads to the site were opened, and soon a castle rose on what had been once farmland. When the opening day ribbon was cut, the guests came and they liked what they saw.
I'd like to dedicate Euro Disney by using the words of a remarkable man, my uncle Walt Disney. He said them on the day one of his fondest dreams came true. To all who come to this happy place, welcome. This is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. We hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to the world.
Et maintenant, je déclare Euro Disney officiellement ouvert.
But Euro Disneyland is a business. It did not have a smooth first couple of years. Euro Disneyland is a business case study of how you can have a fantastic concept well executed, but as a business, when it fails well, the house of cards collapses. And so it was with Euro Disneyland. Financially, the park struggled and struggled for quite a while. There was a period where while the attentions of the Walt Disney Company were focused on Paris, and the situation financially was rectified. According to the master agreement, the company was committed to open a second gate, a second theme park next door. And that started the ticking clock. And after a little bit of consideration, well, Disney went to the thing that was really kind of a natural no-brainer, the Disney MGM Studios. When it opened, it was successful immediately. To the point when the parking lots opened, they were closed 30 minutes after they opened every single morning. And that was because of the success of the park. You have to understand that the French love their cinema just as much, if not more, than the Americans do. Building Disney MGM Studios Europe was a no-brainer. However, building a second version of the Disney MGM Studios in France was not going to be a viable option. So now let's take a moment to understand why and what replaced it, and the reasons why it's so different in France than it is in Orlando. The second park in Europe opened with a different name due to Disney not being able to use the MGM name. Also different was how much of this new park was to be covered and climate-controlled. Paris is located in northern France, and it's very typical that it'd be both cold and damp most of the year. Disney MGM Studios Europe took inspiration from the entertainment pavilion planned for Epcot, mixed with a classic version of old glamour's Hollywood. But this idea was never built, which is a shame because Europe itself has beautiful classic movie studio sound stages and backlots, and MGM Studios Europe would have borrowed from those as well. A true mashup of all that we love about cinema. MGM Studios Europe was in the rear view now, and the Disney Studios Paris, well, it was going forward and quickly. It borrowed a lot of the things from Florida, such as the water tower, which meant now there were 2 water towers on Disney properties. Neither one of them held a drop of water. the construction on Disney Studios Paris began, and soon the covered Main Street and flanking side theaters were rising up from the former farmland.
Great looking cast we have today. How did I get so lucky? I think you're all going to be great. Roll 'em.
The Aladdin Flat Ride was one of the rides in this park, and it was a near copy of the ride that was designed for Walt Disney World.
Oh, so cool!
The two theaters that flanked either side of Soundstage 1 were different from any other Disney park because both had fabric roofs in retrospect. Not the best idea was the Disney Channel building, and this contained sound stages that were used for shows on the Disney Channel in Europe. The plans to move feature animation and character voices from London, well, they never occurred. The tram tour was a very simple ride. It allowed the guests to see the old props from television shows. A recreation of a scene in a film, the fire effect was impressive and loud, so much so that the teams always knew when it went off, because the offices were directly behind this brick wall, and that fire blast made a noise along the tram. There were old props, there were planes, there were jeeps there, there were old cars, even props from the Old Horizons ride at Epcot. The outside stunt show and the indoor stunt show were both located in a faux industrial backlot. These buildings lacked both charm and interesting detail, and for good reason, neither survives today.
Walt Disney Studios premiere. Opening of the Walt Disney Studios, take one.
Lights!
Camera.
Moteur, Saturn.
Action!
Finally, the day came and the Disney Studios in Paris were officially open to guests. The fireworks went off and guests were invited to visit the greatest and latest theme park that Disney had offered them. After one master agreement in 10 years, the box had been ticked off. However, the park was being compared to the old park, the first park, and it was found lacking. Guests complained about Disney's half-day expansion. They compared the two parks, and they liked the first one better. They liked it a lot better. After a while, Disney looked for a solution, and they actually found it back in Orlando, where the original park changed the name. And so now was time to do the same in Paris. And so we say goodbye to the first park name, Walt Disney Studios Paris. And now we say hello to the second park's name, Disney's Adventure World. Adventure World would be a generic catch-all of the park, not a studio. It's a place where anything could appear, while drawing inspiration from the Disney campus in Burbank, California. If nothing else, Adventure World would be more green and more soft, and more an inviting stage. Studio 1 will be replaced by a smaller version of Stage 1, but now, this time, it'll have a theater facade, and that's the place that guests will move through in order to not exactly ride the movies as much as visit the movies. The idea is that you'll be going to many lands within the park around a lake, and you'll be able to see things that you might not otherwise have seen in the old studio park, because there's only so much you can do in a studio, and when you're not really committing to one particular theme, you know, the sky is a limit. You can bring in the glamour, you can bring in the Hollywood premiere feel, you can bring in set props and lighting rigs, and make the place a lot more of a fantasy-based environment, not reality-based, but something where you're telling a fantasy-based story, which after all, isn't that what Hollywood excels at? Fantasy just like Disneyland Paris. But for now, the red carpet is being rolled up and the key lights are being dimmed on what had opened as the Walt Disney Studios Park, Paris.
So Adventure Bay is going to be the future heart of the park with wonderful entertainment possibilities. And of course, across the water is going to be our next immersive world.
That's right. Arendelle and the world of Frozen is coming to life across the bay and will feature our classic Frozen Ever After adventure, a chance to meet Anna and Elsa in a very royal setting, dining at the Two Crowns Tavern, shopping, and very, very special entertainment. I mean, this project is a huge undertaking. The North Mountain alone will have some 400 tons of steel inside. It's going to be absolutely spectacular.
This new area of the park is going to be, designed with expansion in mind for the future.
Yes, there's a lot of room to grow in our future, and our Imagineering team right now is at work on the next immersive world. Walt Disney said Disneyland will never be completed, and I think we're proving that philosophy applies to this park as well. In fact, by the time we complete all of our work, more than 90% of the park will have been transformed.